Attendee acquisition. Years and years ago, it was what came first, the chicken or the egg, the attendee or the exhibitor. I think we all now know attendee acquisition, attendee acquisition, attendee acquisition. In 25 minutes, there's a whole bunch of people much smarter about this in the room than I am. I'm going to give you a quick overview of some data, some research, some ideas. I'm sure 95% of this you're already doing. If nothing else, it reaffirms that you're on the right track. If there's one or two ideas that maybe you want to re-emphasize with your team when you get back, please do so. This is a quick overview of some data on attendee acquisition. It comes from the Attendee Acquisition Roundtable, which is held 3 times a year, and I am really, it's an honor, it's an insight. It's fun for me to be with really smart event marketers. Each roundtable is different. I always learn new things. We limit it to 25 to 30 people with 4 or 5 subject matter experts that are also sponsors. So it's qualitative information that drives the quantitative information. The quantitative information is done by exhibit surveys. Skip Cox and Ian Segura, Jeff Stanley, their whole team, they really make me look really good because I ask some questions, I wonder about some things, and they make it into a correct, statistically valid approach. I think what we're building over the years is getting stronger all the time. So I'd like to thank Exhibit Surveys for the work they are doing for our industry in gathering this information. So the data sources are from 2 different places. The first one is the benchmarks and trends in attendee acquisition. That was sent out in February, and I want to thank Darlene Gudea. She is the official media sponsor of all the roundtables, and she really put her shoulder to the wheel. We had a record-breaking number of responses on the attendee acquisition study. That was to event marketers. So that when I talk about the attendee acquisition study, that was to event marketers. The Pulse, also done by Exhibit Surveys, the Pulse was sent out to a couple of thousand executives in the exhibition and convention industry. So to answer the Pulse, you had to be a C-level executive. Hopefully everyone in this room answered the Pulse, and many other people outside this room around the world answered the Pulse. So we have the actual marketers, the event marketers, and then we have the executives that are managing those people, and those are the data sources. Not a surprise. The number one challenge that the executives identified is growing attendance. You grow attendance, that covers a multitude of sins, is that the expression? Growing attendance is very, very important. The number 3 item is attracting millennials as a number 3 challenge. Now, we heard from Rob Mesereau that there are more millennials now voting for Bernie Sanders than boomers, or whatever he said. But he said something about millennials are now overtaking the boomers. So that's 2 out of the top 3 challenges are attendee acquisition. And obviously the third one, which is in the middle, proving ROI. How do we prove ROI? Well, we prove ROI by delivering the appropriate audience. Delivering the appropriate audience is attendee acquisition. So obviously 3 out of the top 3 challenges delivered by all of you and many other executives is growing attendance. So some benchmarks that came from that study. This one actually came from the doers. This one came from the event marketers. And here's some data that you can take back to compare and contrast to what you're doing. Exclusive of staff costs, a little bit over $308,000 was spent on attendee acquisition, which is 14% of event expense. I urge you, if you are not spending a good amount of your budget on attendee acquisition, it's not a good direction to be heading. Cut elsewhere, invest in attendee acquisition. Cost per attendee, rough matrix, $32, not a matrix, a rough average, $32.66. And as far as density, traffic density, which is crucial, illusion is reality. Gary taught me that very early on. He was a speaker at an early CES, and he asked me how many people were set for his room, and I said something like 120, And he said, why 120? And I said, because over the last couple of years, you've been having 90, 95, 110, and I wanted to, be prepared for your growth. He goes, no, I want it set for 90, and I want 20 chairs waiting to be brought inside. So as far as illusion versus reality, make sure you know that you have the density that you need in the room. If you have a chance to sell more exhibit space, but the density will go down, the number of attendees per exhibiting company will go down, I urge you to rethink that decision. All right, we all like to see how we're doing. This is the pulse. The people who answer the pulse, the people who are in this room, again, we're preaching to the choir in most cases. We've been doing pretty darn well. You can see that from 2013 through 2016, our attendance has been growing. Really nice numbers is how few people have seen a decrease in attendance. So if your event is not growing, obviously we all know we represent the industries and professions that our shows are put on for. But across the board, according to the people who responded to the Pulse, which was just fielded in, I believe, late April and May, almost everybody is seeing increases in attendee growth. All right, why is this happening? Again, these are things that you know, your departments know, you sit in on staff meetings, strategic planning meetings, just a recap, presenting it to you in a hopefully easy to understand format. The email marketing has become much more targeted. We all know that pray and spray is done. We all know that we have to understand our various cohorts. We all understand we have to know what are they the most afraid of. Is Dan Cole in the room? Make them sick or make them well, or what's that expression? Okay, understand what they're afraid of. Understand what they're concerned about. And then show them through your targeted marketing that you have their answer, that you are their lifeline. So the emails have to be well thought out. Send less emails, send fewer numbers, but make sure they are targeted and you'll see a much better response. Better marketing campaign, obviously that's a pretty broad stroke. The old phrase when I was trying to teach myself this business was integrated marketing communication. Hopefully it's still being used. I think it's absolutely crucial. If you're not using every single tool at your disposal, if you're not bringing tools back that you haven't used in a while, you need to use every arrow in your quiver, direct mail, telemarketing, face-to-face. Whatever you have, use it and use it at the appropriate times. Change things up, be a surprise, and that will also help increase your attendee growth. More social media, we certainly know what's going on there. I said earlier, I've been pulled into this world a little bit more actively in the last couple of years because of a great team that I'm working with. It's pretty magical when it's done well, and we're all crazy. I don't think anybody's crazy because I'm sure everybody's using it. We talked about content earlier, content marketing, and an important thing is more exhibitors. Again, this is such common sense, but if you aren't investing in exhibit sales, if you aren't investing in prospecting, if you aren't actively working, like Karen mentioned, with bringing in new exciting product categories to your show, then your attendance isn't going to grow either. So those are the top reasons given by the attendee marketers on why their attendance has grown. Something interesting that Skip has been studying, Skip and Ian, in exhibit surveys for a while, is I think we are pretty reticent in raising our prices. The average price for only 20%, that's 1 in 5, raised their prices for exhibits only. And out of those 20%, the average increase was 12%. Now, I know many of you are saying, like the 17% on this chart, that exhibits only is free. Is that the way it's going to continue forever? Is there reasons to rethink that? If you are providing more value, can you raise the price? I think that's, I think that is a strong possibility. That is something for you to look at, to compare, and to think about, is there opportunity for you to increase your gross because you're leaving money on the table. When it comes to full conference, it's interesting. More people are raising the full conference price. I think that might be because it's, more folks are from associations. Maybe they have a routine, a schedule every other year, 2 or 3%, whatever it might be. But I think many people feel that they can increase the price for their full conference. The average price that is being increased is 8%. When you think, just like we talk about net square foot pricing for exhibitors, we know that that's 30 to 40% of the total cost that the exhibitor incurs. So if we feel that our show is getting stronger, if we've added a strong new benefit to our exhibitors, raise the price for your net square footage because it's not the majority of what their cost already is. Well, in the same line of thinking, why don't we think that way about our registration fees? Now, if your associations are run by attendees, then you have obviously something to think about there. But if you know you're adding a new special feature, if you're adding new education, if you're adding a new product category, if you feel that your next year's show is much more valuable than this year's show, raise the price of your registration fees. I think you'll be surprised how well that will be received. Now, one of the questions was asked at our panel: how do we get exhibitors? How do we incentivize is the wrong word, activate, I think is the right word. How do we activate our exhibitors and sponsors to be more involved in what we do? I think we heard that probably the best thing to do is talk to them. Go see them. When I was running a show, Print Converflex, one of the larger exhibitors at a competing show was very unhappy. It was called CMM. This was quite a few years ago. And I flew up to Princeton, New Jersey, and I sat down with this person 18 months in advance. And I said, this is what we're doing. This is what I understand you're not happy with. How can we work together? And just because we created a personal rapport, and because I asked and we brainstormed, it turned into one of the most exciting campaigns that I was ever involved with, because that exhibitor was so ready to leave that other show that they put all of their resources into the show that I was working on. So that was an exhibitor program that went through the roof. You all pretty much know these are tried and true. I'd like to just point out increased presentations by exhibitors. I think you know that I'm still pretty much old school. I don't have my sponsors on stage. Never say never, but that's still the way I roll. But as long as you have it clearly marked that the education, that the programming is provided by an exhibitor, in many cases they are the subject matter experts. They have great speakers. They're involved in content marketing just like we are. So it might be some, more way to break down that church versus state or whatever that, that line of demarcation might be in the past. Incentivize exhibitors to share their lists. We heard from somebody that they will never share their list. There are programs out there where the lists are given to third-party bonded mail houses so nobody does see the list. I've heard stories where exhibitors get early move-in. There's competitions. The more of your customers that register and verify, you might get early move-in. You might get increased priority points. Find out what's important to your exhibitor community and give it to them as a reward. Somebody years ago at an attendee acquisition roundtable mentioned that they give out as prizes to exhibitors unsold sponsorships. So they get the exhibitors to compete, they get more registrants, they get more people coming, and it doesn't cost them anything because they're giving out something that hasn't been sold anyway. So I thought that was a pretty neat idea. Your exhibitors, your sponsors, they are evangelists, and please take every advantage that you can to work with them. So, the attendee marketing spend has been going up, and I think that's Very, very good. Obviously, it dipped a little bit from 14, but 15 and 16, there's a pretty consistent trend line. If you are not, I think I might have said this earlier, if you are not increasing your spend on attendee acquisition, please go back and look at that very closely. And the time for you to increase the spend is when your show is strong. When you're doing well is the time for you to just hit the pedal to the metal. Don't waste money, but spend more and make your show even stronger, because once your show starts weakening, those additional dollars will not give you the punch that you would have once you're on the ascend. Again, this information is available on the Pulse, and the Pulse is in each one of your binders. It also will be on our on the website. But the increases have been a pretty decent amount. So increase the budget, increase it by a good amount. Obviously, monitor how it's being spent, invest, and that's the biggest thing. Attendee acquisition is not an expense. Attendee acquisition is an investment in next year's exhibit sales. So if you have a happy floor, if you have happy exhibitors, if you have good density, if you have the right buyers, how's your exhibit sales and sponsorship sales going to be for next year? Obviously much better. It's not an expense, it's an investment. Okay, where are people spending more? They're spending more in digital marketing. That's not a surprise. The total number said 64% of the marketers are spending more in digital marketing, 75% when you ask just of independents. Now, I'll surmise that might be that independents have a deeper bench. They might have more staff. They might have people in other departments of web metrics or publishing or custom publishing that they can access. But really, investing in digital marketing is crucial. And I think it's other interesting, and that this is all just conjecture on my part. Social media. It's 57% across the board. 53% of the independents are doing it, so that's a little bit less. My guess is that social media is being used more by associations because possibly associations are still looking for that 365, 24/7 engagement. They're trying to build that community. So that's my take on that. Email marketing. Why are there fewer associations doing it than independents? My guess there is because of my work with associations throughout the year, we hear over and over again, email burnout. You're sending me too many emails, and every association lives in deathly fear of having one of their members opt out. Because if they opt out, then you can't talk to them about Capitol Hill, lobbying, fundraising, anything. Not only, obviously, is also not talk to them about the event, the annual meeting, the convention that you want them to attend. But here's just a quick overview of where marketers are spending. None of this will be a surprise to any of you. The other thing that's getting stronger all the time, and it's something that needs to be watched closely, is digital remarketing. I will actually read the definition because I am not 100% comfortable with this just yet. I do know that I think I looked at a new pair of shoes. I looked at buying a pair of shoes online, the other day, and now they're in my dreams. I can't get away from that new pair of shoes. But I think that's an example. Using automated tools to re-engage visitors, customers, based on recent interactions with your brand. Stopped using, I think that's interesting. That's probably from just really bad blowback. Currently using, again, I think the independents are more comfortable with it, they're more aggressive with it, and maybe they don't have members that they're afraid of losing, and the associations are considering using it in a new way. At the very, very minimum, make sure you work with your reg companies and do something as simple as no one should ever stop your registration process without getting an automatic email from the registration company the next day saying, we noticed you stopped, click here to recontinue, here's some additional information. That's like the very, very basic, and everyone really should be doing that. And the reason people are using it is because it's effective. 86% say remarketing, retargeting is effective across the board. Now is the time to also add staff. 64% of the executives that answered ECEF polls, 64% said they are adding staff. Out of that 64%, 34%, over a third, are saying they're adding staff in attendee marketing. Why is that? Because attendee marketing, attendee acquisition is the number one challenge we are all facing. So when you're looking at your staffing plans for next year, please look to add the appropriate subject matter experts in the area of attendee marketing. Okay, let's learn a little bit about how you folks are doing, what some of your ideas are, some of your techniques. Do you have a full-time staff dedicated to attendee recruitment sales? And I mean someone selling attendee registrations just like you have people selling exhibit space or sponsorship. Please answer the question. Wow, okay, so 44% said yes. A very few percent said planning, but 44% said yes. Now, in 2013, we asked the same question. We asked this same audience the same question. Let's see what they said in 2013.
In 2013, they said 20% yes versus 44% for 2016. And 76% in 2013 said no. It's now 52% in 2016.
I think that's a very heartening trend. We've all, 100%, right, from 20% to 40% or 44%, are now realizing that hiring an attendee acquisition salesperson is a good thing. And if anyone knows Roy Turner, please tell him that I've been preaching his gospel for 15 years. He's with Surf Expo, never met the man, but you can tell him that what he started 20 years ago is now taking hold in our industry. Thank you, Roy. Okay, how many of you hold an annual strategic marketing meeting with staff and your partners? How many of you hold an annual planning, not tactics, a strategic planning marketing meeting with staff and partners? Please answer. All right, over half are doing it, and with starting, we'll be up to 60%. And in 2013, we asked the same question. And how does that result to 2016?
In 2013, it was 29%. It is now 55%, quite an increase. And for no, it was 64% in 2013. It's now 39% in 2016.
Okay, so we're all heading in the same direction. We all realize the importance of attendee acquisition. We're investing in attendee salespeople, and we're investing in the time and effort to bring outside experts in, our suppliers, our partners, our agencies, our research companies, as well as our staff, to think with a clear sheet of paper and say, what do we need to be successful next year? Okay, now that we've finished patting ourselves on the back, I wanted to share one thing that's been fun for me, interesting for me, and Exhibit Surveys has indulged me in doing this. We asked the worker bees, we asked the attendee marketers a question, and then we asked their bosses the very same question. The question we asked was, what is the support of senior management, of executives? What's the support for new attendee marketing initiatives? The bosses said that's 90%. The bosses said that 90% of them are extremely supportive of new marketing initiatives, and what did their staffs think? 73%. Now, Skip, is that a pretty significant gap? He's nodding yes. He doesn't want anybody to throw tomatoes at him. So the reason I wanted to bring that up is, as well as we've seen, we've increased and improved from 2013 to 2016 in certain areas, we are still not, as C-level executives, being supportive enough of new attendee marketing initiatives. So the main point I want to leave you with is, when you get back to your office, when you hear a new idea, when you see a budget come across your desk for something that's never been done before, bite your lip, think about 3 or 4 reasons why that might just work, and see how your staff blossoms, and see how possibly your attendee acquisition efforts will improve. Thank you very much.